The main challenge that I faced with the Chaquinn and really any kind of work where you're communicating new ideas, the main challenge you face is vocabulary, because you either have to pedantically redefine words and exactly how you're going to use them, because words have such preloaded meanings to them. I mean, if I say the word religion, for example, it's so preloaded, it's gonna unload so many definitions and automatic responses in people, feelings, chemicals. It's gonna release so many different things in so many different people that it really effectively can't be used to communicate, especially a new or a more succinct idea. So either the challenge is to pedantically spend hours or hundreds or thousands of pages redefining words and the way that you're going to use them, and hopefully it's understood, and then if anyone wants to relate it, it's a whole nother, it's like, well, when they say this, they don't mean this, they mean that. And at some point it becomes easier to just create brand new vocabulary, and so that's what I've done with Chaquinn. I've just created a lot of new vocabulary. So it might seem a little overwhelming at first, and it might require a little bit of a rewatching or backing up and trying to remember what words are, which is a little bit of a pain, but I find it to be much less of a pain than to just make new words. So the first word that's important in Chaquinnism is lamanta. And lamanta is something that has always existed, and always will exist. It's also something that is lamanta is, and lamanta itself is. It exists in itself, it's of itself, and it's for itself. So let's say a pencil is lamanta, which a pencil is not lamanta, but if it was, then that would mean it's always existed, it currently exists, and it always will exist. It would also mean it's in itself, of itself, and for itself. So usually the first question that comes from there then is, well, what does in itself, of itself, and for itself mean? Well, something that's in itself, if you were to ask the question, where does this exist, the answer would be in itself. And if you were to say, well, what's it made of? Well, the answer would be of itself. And then if you were to ask the question, well, what's it for? What was it created for? Why is it here? What purpose is it serving? Then the answer would be for itself. So it was created for itself. It exists for itself. It doesn't exist for anything else other than itself. So that's, in short, in itself, of itself, and for itself. So then the next question might be, well, can you give me an example of something that is lamanta? Well, an easy way to give an example of something that is lamanta, or explain how something is lamanta, is to give an example of something that's not lamanta but is similar to it. So in other words, it's something that's made of the thing that is lamanta. So for that, I would say math. And math is the example I will use. So let's just run our quick lamanta exercise through math to see if math is lamanta. Has math always existed? No. Does math currently exist? Yes. Will math always exist? No. You might ask why. Well, before man existed, there was no such thing as math. Man currently exists, humans exist here on Earth, and there is such a thing as math. Humans will not always exist, Earth will not always exist, and math will not always exist. Might exist a really long time on a hard drive somewhere sent out to space, but it's not going to always exist. So we already know that math isn't La Manta, but we can go ahead and say, okay, well, we can explore further. Is it in itself, of itself, and for itself? Well, where does math exist? Does math exist in itself? No, it doesn't. It exists in the minds of humans. It exists where it's recorded in books and computers. Is it made of itself? No, it is not. It is made of something that is La Manta, and that's something I'll call SEMA, S-E-M-A. And we'll talk more about SEMA in a second. And was math made for itself? No. Math was made by humans to communicate ideas of SEMA to other humans and to record ideas and parts of SEMA. So math is not in itself, of itself, and for itself. And math has not always existed, and it will not always exist. So we know math is not La Manta. Now, something that is La Manta is SEMA, S-E-M-A. SEMA has always existed, it currently exists, and it always will exist. And it is in itself, of itself, and for itself. So where does SEMA exist? It exists within SEMA. What is SEMA made of? It's made of SEMA. It's not like math. Math was made of SEMA, but SEMA is made of SEMA. What was SEMA made for? SEMA. Now you might say, well, okay, whatever. What is SEMA? Well, let's go back in time, maybe before math existed. And there's a bunch of cave people sitting around. They've collected a bunch of berries, and there's a big group of, I don't know, 100 people, and they share everything. And they have this big pile of berries, and they want to evenly distribute. Everybody gets the same amount of berries. Well, my goodness, how do they do it? Math has not been invented yet. Whatever will these poor cave people do? Well, don't worry, because SEMA has always existed. And even though they're not going to be able to say, well, what's 1,862 divided by 100? They can evenly distribute these berries still, because SEMA existed long before these cave people existed, and it will exist long after these cave people existed, because it is La Manta. Now let's say there's one really clever cave person in the group, and he's like, you know, we do this every time, and it takes so long because we have to walk around in a circle and go 1, 1, 1, or Johnny over there, you know, he just knows. What if there was a way that we could just, you know, more quickly communicate this every time, so when Johnny's sick, we don't have to walk around in the circle and go 1, 1, you know, because Johnny is one of those people, he's just really good at this. You know, he just knows. You ever know one of those people? They're just really good at what we call math today. So when Johnny's not here, what do we do? He's like, well, here, what if we do this? What if we draw this symbol, and then we carry this, and then we'll do this little thing, and we carry this over, and then look, that works. Boom. Introduction of math, which is a thing which is not La Manta. Right? At this point, it exists in the heads of the cave people. It's made of SEMA, and it was made for the cave people to be able to communicate an idea of SEMA. So SEMA is that which is La Manta. Math is not La Manta. And I'm going to end this video here. Thank you. So the next question might be, okay, I understand what La Manta is now. And I understand something that's a La Manta and something that's not. That was interesting. Can you give me an example of something else that is La Manta? And I would say Sakapatua. And you might say, Sakapa what? Sakapatua. So I don't want to just give a non-La Manta. I don't want to say, hey, when I say Sakapatua, think this. Remember how I displayed the difference between SEMA and math? So you can't just define SEMA as math. They have nothing to do with each other. They're completely different things. Math is just simply a derivative, a non-La Manta thing that's a derivative of something that is La Manta. So what is Sakapatua, and how do you define something that is La Manta? It's really hard to do, especially for us humans today. Our human brains to comprehend things that are La Manta, and it's not a conversation we normally have because it's not something, it's not a conversation we want to have, and I'll talk more about that later. But if we were to look at math as the non-La Manta derivative of SEMA, then probably words like happiness, pleasure, joy, those might be non-La Manta derivatives of Sakapatua. Now don't think of Sakapatua as happiness, pleasure, or joy, but again, as math is to SEMA, happiness, pleasure, or joy are to, or whatever, Sakapatua. Now Sakapatua is important because Sakapatua is the reason we're here. That's our purpose on Earth, is to collect Sakapatua. Now, an interesting quality of Sakapatua, which I'll get into more later, an interesting quality of Sakapatua, of course, is like everything that's La Manta. It's always existed, it exists, and it always will exist. It's made of itself, for itself, and it exists in itself. So you might say, well, what about happiness, pleasure, and joy? If those aren't La Manta, but they're non-La Manta derivatives of Sakapatua, well, before man existed, where did the happiness, pleasure, and joy that man feels exist in? It didn't. What is the happiness, pleasure, and joy that we feel made of? Sakapatua. It's not Sakapatua itself. It's just it's like a copy. It's a non-La Manta derivative of Sakapatua. It's a copy of Sakapatua. It's a fake. It's a fake Sakapatua, if you will. We might say, well, math was used by cave people to express ideas of SEMA to each other. So what is happiness, pleasure, and joy used for? Well, I will answer that. Happiness, pleasure, and joy are used by what I refer to as your automatic response system. An automatic response system I'll shorten by just saying ARS. Well, you might say, well, obviously a good question is, what the heck's the ARS? Well, the ARS is an artificial intelligence program that runs your body. It's in charge. It has two objectives. One, keep you alive. It also has a greater mission, which is keep the human species alive. You've probably heard of an artificial intelligence system, something like Uber uses or might use in the future to run with their little self-driving taxis. Sounds really complicated. It's not. They're actually artificial intelligence programs and machine learning. They're really dumb programs. They're really simple. It would be like, for example, the car takes pictures as it's driving a customer, and it compares it to pictures it has stored in memory of auto accidents, crashes. And the program goes like this: if you see something that looks like this, do this. And the thing it does probably sends information to a database somewhere that stores it and says, okay, there's an accident at this intersection, so if you take somebody back past there within the next couple hours, avoid this intersection. So it sounds like it's learning, sounds exciting, sounds like it's intelligent. It's really not. It's just following a very basic script. It's got a very big memory, and it can access things quickly and efficiently, but it's not really what we imagine. It's not gonna start having emotions and kill all the humans and take over the world like our imagination makes us think. And that's really all machine learning and artificial intelligence is, and that's really all you are. Although you'll learn later that's not really who you are, but that's all your human body is. It's just a really well-written, advanced artificial intelligence program, which itself is very simple and quite stupid, quite dumb, quite silly, with a mission: number one, keep you alive; number two, keep the human species alive. You might say, well, who wrote this program? I would call that La Manta itself. I try to be careful when using the word preloaded words, so I'm going to stick with the word La Manta itself wrote the program. That's not to offend anyone or exclude anyone, or it's for no purpose other than to avoid preloaded words. Now there's other questions that come up like why, but we're getting way off topic here. But in order to explain what happiness, pleasure, and joy are, I had to first explain what the ARS is. In order to define what Sakapatua is, because it's difficult. It's difficult to define things that are Lamanta. So there's one more thing I have to define before I can finish defining what Sakapatua is, and that's another word called your Namakata. Your Namakata is who you actually are. For example, my name is Seth and I have a human body, but I am not this body and I am not Seth. I am my Namakata. My Namakata has always existed, currently exists, and always will exist. Because my Namakata is Lamanta. Where does my Namakata exist? In itself. What is my Namakata made of? Not my Namakata. What is my Namakata here for? What was it made for? It was made for itself. My Namakata is in itself, of itself, and for itself. It has always existed, it currently exists, and it always will exist. I am my Namakata. I am not Seth Coke. Seth Coke's so close to does not exist, I could just say Seth Coke does not exist, and I'm far more correct than I am wrong in that statement. What does my Namakata do? What's the purpose? Well, there's another Lamanta word I have to define in the midst of all this. So I know this might feel a little jumbled and overcomplicated. This is actually a year's worth of work of simplifying all this down. From a 10-book series to a 21-page book called the Chaquinn. And this other word of a thing, which is Lamanta, is called Falanika. And again, the point of using new vocabulary is not to just quickly translate old vocabulary with it, but if I had to say that we could see where math was made of Sema, we could see where happiness, pleasure, and joy were just kind of made of Sakapatua, but really just copies of Sakapatua. I'll get more into that here later. Falanika has always existed, exists, always will exist. It's in itself, of itself, and it is for itself. There are two sides of Falanika. Wapamo, W-A-P-O-M-O, Wapamo, and Senekawa, S-E-N-E-K-A-W-A. As your Namakata is either Wapamo or Sinikawa in the Phalanika. To be Wapamo means to be collecting Sakapatua, gaining Sakapatua. To be Sinikawa means to be destroying, or let's say removing, taking out, the opposite of collecting Sakapatua. So if we're Wapamo, if our Namakatas are Wapamo, we are collecting Sakapatua. If we are Sinikawa, we are losing Sakapatua. Let's say, for example, you open the blinds in your house and more sun comes in. Well, you've collected sunlight. If instead you close the blinds, then you're blocking out sunlight and you're losing light. So that closing the blinds on Sakapatua would be being Sinikawa. Opening the blinds would be Wapamo. As Wapamo, our goal, our purpose, the reason we are living, our Namakatas living in this human simulation, is to collect Sakapatua. That is our one and only purpose. That is the only reason we are here in this human simulation on Earth, is to collect Sakapatua. Sinikawa is not what we want to be. It can seem that way. We can be led astray, and maybe because we're led astray, that's why we're here. I guess it comes down to, do you want to feel like crap? Do you want to be dark? Do you want to feel miserable and sick? Do you want to feel pain and agony and torment? Imagine you won the lottery. I'd say 99.9% of us would feel an intense feeling of what we could call happiness, pleasure, or joy. But then imagine what would happen a month later, maybe even just a few weeks later, years later. That happiness and pleasure and joy would dissipate. They would disappear. They would go away. They could even become an equal amount of suffering. Maybe family members are harassing you for money, old friends, you've lost relationships because of it. Maybe you lose all the money, or you feel so much stress over the money. I think we all understand how something like that can go from feeling very, very high, intense feeling of joy to disappearing. Kind of like if it was your dream to always own a certain house, and once you get the house, how long before, you just don't feel it anymore. Well, Sakapatua would be like that intense feeling, like that very moment you realize you won the lottery, except it never goes away. It lasts forever, because Sakapatua is Lamanta. things that are lamanta always exist. Sakapatua, we can either have more of it or less of it. But it never changes form. It doesn't become something else. It doesn't have an antithesis. Something that's lamanta has no antithesis. Something that's not lamanta does have an antithesis. So like happiness, pleasure, and joy, well, they become suffering. You finally get that house you wanted. Well, then it burns down. Or the taxes go up, or you can't afford to pay it anymore, or you decide maybe you would have rather traveled, or you get divorced and now you're stuck with this house you can't afford or don't need, or you know, it goes on and on and on. We've all experienced these things. So the Sakapatua is, again, that ideal feeling that never changes form. It never goes away. Unless you become Sinikawa and remove it. As Wapamo, both during this human existence and after, because our Namakata lives forever. Our Namakata has always existed, exists, and always will exist. That Sakapatua we get to take with us. Because that Sakapatua is in us, which is our Namakata. Our bodies die. Seth's not going to exist, but my Namakata is. Sakapatua is the only thing I get to take with me. I could take less than I had maybe before the simulation if I was Sinikawa. But as Wapamo, my only purpose here is to collect as much Sakapatua as I possibly can while I'm here. Now the ARS does not like the Namakata. It's rather dumb. It doesn't understand things like truth. It doesn't understand what a Namakata is. The ARS views the Namakata as a danger, as an outside alien force. More of that discussion is better for a different video, different place, different book on how the inner workings of the ARS. But the ARS, in order to finish my definition of Sakapatua, the ARS uses a copy of what might look like Sakapatua, called happiness, pleasure, or joy. And when you do things that the ARS wants, it rewards you with happiness, pleasure, and joy. The same way, if your Namakata is Wapamo, you can collect Sakapatua. If your ARS is in control, which it wants to be, I call that living a state one life. The ARS is in control of your Namakata. It's making the decisions. It's calling the shot. It's leading you along, dropping you happiness, pleasure, and joy to get you to do what it wants. Not because it's evil or hates you. The ARS's job is to ensure your survival, and its ultimate job, ensure the survival of the human species. But your mission as a Wapamo is to collect as much Sakapatua as you can while you live this human simulation. The ARS does not and will never understand what that means. So the ARS's mission is different than your Namakata's, which is why you cannot be Wapamo until you understand this separation, until you understand that you do not exist. This body does not exist. Seth Coke is not here. This body is not real. My Namakata is real. Until you understand that and allow your Namakata to be in charge, you will not collect Sakapatua. You will be enslaved to the automatic response system, which will lead you along by giving you happiness, pleasure, and joy. And you'll live your life like a ping pong ball, constantly ping-ponging between suffering and happiness, suffering and happiness. Constantly having to add more and more and more happiness, only to have it turn into suffering, just to try to keep balancing it out. So it's always got to be a newer car, or new clothes, or more this, or more that, or more women, or more sex, or more drugs, or more alcohol, or whatever it takes. It's this constant ping-pong battle, collecting happiness that just turns into dirt and suffering, and then you just got to get more, and you're back and forth and back and forth. The automatic response system is fine with that because it's keeping you alive. It's controlling you. It's controlling how you interact with the rest of the human species and what you do. It's fulfilling its mission. And we need it. We need it to fulfill our mission. Even when we realize we're our Namakata and we're not our automatic response system, we still need it. I have a really bad stomach flu right now. I don't know how to direct my body to fight it off. I don't know how to tell my white blood cells to get to work. My ARS does, and I need it to do its job. I don't hate my automatic response system. I don't hate myself. I don't hate Seth Coke. It's just very important that I realize that I'm not Seth Coke. If my Namakata were to live in the body of a wolf for a week, it's very important to understand that I'm not that wolf. Speaking of wolves, did you get loose? So as Wapamo, again, our purpose in life is very easy. It's nothing difficult or mystical. We don't need to listen to our heart. We don't need to do any of these things. All we need to do is simply collect Sakapatua. Now, the next question might be, okay, but I gotta tell you the truth. I just really want to be freaking rich, right? And we all do. So everything else is bull crap. Let me just get rich, and then once I'm rich, I'll get a yacht, and I'll start meditating, and I'll swim with dolphins, and I'll just fix it all then. The reason we all desire to be rich is because that's what our automatic response system wants for us. Right? What does it mean to be rich? To be rich means to have significantly more of something that everyone else wants than everyone else has. So we can't all be rich. If we were all rich, then no one would be rich, right? So to be rich just means to have significantly more of something that everybody wants than everybody else has. So the automatic response system wants us to be rich because that ensures our survival. If I have a lot more food than everybody else has, then I'm far more likely to survive than everybody else. And if the automatic response system didn't have as a greater mission to keep the human species alive, then we would certainly die as a species because we'd all strive to be rich. So that's why we all crave. And if we're living as state one individuals, if the automatic response system is in control, then that is truly all you'll want, is to be rich. But there's something so much better than being rich. Just like there's something so much better than happiness, pleasure, and joy. And that thing that's so much better than those three things is Sakapatua. Now, there's a part of Sakapatua, which is Alondaka. 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 And Alondaka is part of Sakapatua, which is something which is Lamanta. And Alondaka means having everything you need, having more than everything you need in order for your Namakata to fulfill its mission. The mission being, collect as much Sakapatua as your Namakata can while you live within this human simulation. Alondaka is so far superior to being rich. In the same way that Sakapatua is far more superior than happiness, pleasure, or joy. Could it even be said that maybe being rich is a curse? Maybe. And I'll give an example of how being rich could actually be harmful when I go to my last example here, which is, okay, fine, let me be Wapamo. What do I do? How do I follow this? How do I collect Sakapatua? What do I have to do? Do I have to vow off women or men? Do I have to wake up at 1 a.m. every day and eat worms and don't sleep and shave my head? You don't. Lamanta itself created this human simulation for you. For what purpose? For your Namakata's purpose. What's your Namakata's purpose? To be Wapamo. Every single thing that you need to be Wapamo, you have been given by Lamanta itself. Every single thing that you need, and by you I mean your Namakata, which is who you are, every single thing you need to achieve your mission, you have been given by Lamanta itself. So all you have to do is one thing. Take only that which you have been given and absolutely nothing else. Take only that which you have been given and absolutely nothing else. If you take something that you have not been given, you will be Sinakawa. If you take only that which you have been given and absolutely nothing else, you will be Wapamo. Quick examples. You walk into a computer store, you buy a $5,000 computer, you're handed, the clerk takes your money, says thanks, hands you a $20 computer and says have a good day. Does that mean you have to take the $20 computer if you take only that which you've been given and absolutely nothing else? No. It's not take what you've been given, it's take only what you've been given. Is asking the clerk to check whether he got the right computer, is that taking something that you were not given? Absolutely not. What are you taking? You're taking nothing. You're just asking a question. So you can ask the clerk to check, and probably what would happen, even if the low odds that happen, is the clerk would say, "Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, here's the right computer. Sorry about that." But let's assume that this was like a real jerk, psychotic clerk, and he was like, I know it's the wrong computer. Get out of here or I'll beat you to death. Well, what would you do in that case? Well, you bought a computer. You were given money, and for whatever reason, and you bought a computer with it. You gave that money to the store under the terms that store would give you the computer you bought. But were you given that? No. Someone was Sinakawa to you. Someone took that which you had not given them. They took that from you. They were Sinakawa. Instead, they gave you a far cheaper computer than you bought, and they are taking your money. They are Sinakawa. You did not give that to them. You even reminded them and let them know that you did not give that to them. They are Sinakawa. They took that. They did not take only that which they had been given. Instead, they were Sinakawa. Now, I know I said you only had one purpose as Wapamo. You actually have two. But it's still the same one. It just sounds like two. Because your mission here is to collect as much Sakapatua as you can. Well, you do that by taking only that which you've been given and absolutely nothing else. And also by covering Sinakawa of others. To you or to others. To other people or Sinakawa directed to you. So as a Wapamo, in this situation, the correct thing for you to do is say, okay, I give you that computer. It's yours. Hey, here's $100. I feel like you need it. Would you take this $100 and go out and you go enjoy maybe get some snacks and something to drink so you can enjoy the new computer. Have a good day. That seems impossible. Only kind of person would do that would be someone who believes they're a Namakata and this is a human simulation and they're here to be Wapamo and collect as much Sakapatua as they can. Now, why would Wapamo do that? Because you are covering that clerk's Sinakawa. He is no longer Sinakawa. He did take that which he had not been given. However, by you offering the clerk $100 in addition to the computer that the clerk stole from you, he's no longer Sinakawa because you gave him the computer. It's not yours, it's his. You gave it to him. Now he is not Sinakawa. You're Wapamo, and by covering others Sinakawa, you gain Sakapatua. It's not the only way to gain Sakapatua. But trust me, the Sakapatua that you gain by covering that clerk's Sinakawa is worth so much more than that computer. And you get to take it with you. When this human simulation all gets turned to dirt, the Sakapatua you get to take with you. That's some serious stuff right there. How many people do you know that live that way? It's got to be very close to zero. It's not a joke. It's easy. When you know this is a simulation and you're your Namakata, it's not hard. It's also a fairly extreme example, not likely to happen, but you get the point. What if someone says, oh hey, Seth, here's a cup of poison. Drink it. Do I have to take it? No. Take only that which you have been given and nothing, absolutely nothing else. Well, take only that, so I don't have to take it. What I take is only something that's been given to me and nothing else. So I can decline the cup of poison. No, thank you. I don't want it. He might say, well, I'm going to kill you anyways. Say, well, go ahead. Do you want me to sign my car over to you before you kill me? That way you can have that? What are you going to do? End this human simulation for me and send me about my way with more Sakapatua than I came with? Thank you. Thank you so much. I honestly really am grateful for you killing me. And even though you committed Sinakawa, don't worry, I got that covered. I covered it by giving you my car. So you didn't take my life, I gave it to you. Win, 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 win. Everybody wins. And that's where I said before that being rich can actually be a harm to your mission. There goes a brown pelican. Can actually be a harm to your mission to be Wapamo, because when you're rich, it's kind of hard to do what's right. I mean, if you got 50 bucks in your bank account and someone takes it from you, it's not that hard to let it go. But if you got 50 million or 5 billion, ooh, you're married pretty hardcore to this human simulation. You're married pretty hardcore to your automatic response system. So what seems like a blessing can actually really be a curse. But when you're Anandaka, you don't have to worry about that. That's why Anandaka is so much better than riches. Anandaka would never get in the way of you being Wapamo. Anandaka is everything you need and even more to complete your mission here on Earth, this earthly simulation, which is to be Wapamo. Anandaka is great. Sakapatua is great. Riches can really lead you to be Sinakawa. So if your goal in life, if people were like, if you had one wish, what would it be? And it's to win the lottery, you know, or get $1 billion, you're ignorant. You're ignorant. Your state one, your automatic response system's in control, not your Namakata. You need to seek the truth a bit more. I know it sounds silly that a wise man seeks wisdom and not riches, but that's what it is. What I call a state 2 individual is someone whose Namakata is in control, calling the shots, making the decisions, deciding the directions. The automatic response system's kind of taking its proper backseat. Because we need it. We can't really live without it through this human simulation. It is here for us. We just need to remember it's here for us. We're not here for it. We call the shots. It doesn't call the shots. So if you feel like maybe I thought my life would be more, I didn't know I would just be surviving, or you feel a little lost, or a little sad, or a little depressed, or a little yearning, or I want to follow my heart, but I don't know how. It twists me this way and it twists me that way. What do I need to do? What course do I need to take? I would say don't do any of that. Don't follow your heart. Don't listen to your heart. Just stop everything you're doing. Hello there, little guy. Don't do any of those things. Do only one thing. Take only that which you have been given. Absolutely nothing else. And cover the Sinakawa of others, both directed to you and what you witness elsewhere. That's it. That's all you have to do. And I promise you, you will find Sakapatua. And when you find Sakapatua, you know it. And when you collect more Sakapatua, you'll know it. And it will get easier and easier and easier to do. If you want to talk more about this, learn more, I know there's still questions. I know there's more ways to go. I know there's maybe more examples of what it means to take only that which you've been given. Check out Chaquinn.com, CHAQUINN.com. My book is on Amazon. It's mostly it's the Chaquinn by Seth Koch. It's mainly just this info in 21 pages, maybe a little more succinct. That's it. There's a little chat box. You can just come ask me questions. I'll be on there. There's daily videos, updates. You can come ask questions, because I know in everyday life sometimes it gets a little confusing. Like, let's say you're walking down the sidewalk and there's some big jerk taking the whole thing. Well, do you put your shoulders back and say, this, I get part of this sidewalk? Or do you just step off to the side and let him pass? Well, did the man give you your fair share of the sidewalk? No, he didn't. So if you take it through your body posture, then you're taking that which you have not been given. So that would make you Sinakawa, so don't do it. See how you can be led just in small things in life? And then go further to cover his Sinakawa. By removing yourself completely from the sidewalk and letting him have the whole thing as he passes, you're now giving him the sidewalk, which now means he's no longer Sinakawa. He was taking that which he hadn't been given. Everybody knows you should share the sidewalk a little bit. You don't own the world, but he thinks he does. Let him give it to him. Now you're covering his Sinakawa. That little action right there may lead you on a mission in life. You may discover something. You may turn around and see a poster for something that leads you I don't know. What I'm saying is Lamanta itself has given you everything you need to be Wapamo. It's laid everything out for you. All you have to do is follow it. And because it's given you everything you need, obviously, you just take only that which you have been given. If you take something that you haven't been given, then you're not following what Lamanta put you here for. It's so simple. It's so easy. I don't know why it was so obfuscated from human minds and history and for so long, and we like to make things more complicated a lot of times because for different reasons. Our automatic response system's struggling to find riches, so You know, things that are easy are hard to get rich from. Imagine if you were a fitness trainer and you found the best fitness routine in the world. It was called come in 3 times a week and do as many pull-ups as you can and go home. I mean, that's not the best fitness routine, but let's just say it was. Well, who the hell's going to pay you to do that with them? Have you ever seen fitness trainers? And I mean, they tend to pull out so much equipment and bells and balls and jump here and throw this ball against that wall and pick that bell up and do this. Now go do 10 of these, now 12 of those. Now, it's just natural to make it really complicated, because if it's not very complicated, then you don't really need that person to tell you what to do you? So we tend to overcomplicate things. I know you might say, yeah, well, it says the guy who just introduced 20 new vocabulary words, but in order to explain to take only that which you have been given and absolutely nothing else, because Lamanta created it for your Namakata to be Wapamo, to gain Sakapatua. I mean, it'd be great if those words already existed. Then this whole video could be 1 sentence long, but they don't. So I had to create a little mini language here in order to get that idea across, but which itself is a very simple idea, a very simple way of life. And you don't have to get up in the morning and listen to Eye of the Tiger and jump and scream and pump yourself, and you don't have to be vegan, and you don't have to get up at 5 in the morning, and you don't have to stop eating sugar, and you don't have to say this or that or do these mantras, or you don't do any of that. I mean, you can just be whoever the hell you are. You can just be your normal self. Just understand that your Namakata is who you are, not this rotting piece of flesh. And your purpose is to be Wapamo. And the way you're Wapamo is by taking only that which you have been given, absolutely nothing else, and covering the Sinakawa of others whenever you can. Do that and you will collect Sakapatua. And you won't regret it. So thank you for watching. And like I say, there's the Chaquinn is on Amazon, or go to chaquinn.com. This video is on there. Other videos are on there. The book in the book format's on there for free. Thank you. Thank you for your time. I hope you've enjoyed this.